All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on a Monday afternoon. We're going to talk about the Commanders and the Steelers going in opposite directions after triumphant and anti-triumphant results for each in Week 17. And then we'll talk about the NBA MVP and Rookie of the Year markets. Where I have some strong opinions, Drew, that I'm keen to get your opinion on. But let's start off with the Commanders, who win against the Falcons by the skin of their teeth by a few yards on that short field goal at the end, and by the grace of Raheem Morris's atrocious clock management, which, by the way, he's been doing all season. He's been kind of getting away with it until yesterday, which was a complete farce. But with the Commanders, what do you think their upside is to actually win multiple playoff games and make a deep run and potentially even win the NFC? Both just in general, what type of kind of variance do you think this team has? And do you think there's any meat on the bone at 16-1 to win the NFC?
I mean, my mindset in general is that the NFC is wide freaking open. And I think that includes the Commanders. Now, they have some kind of classical hurdles. Number one is usually when you take a rookie quarterback into the playoff environment, their first start can be a little bit rough. And I think ultimately Jaden Daniels has comported himself as well as you possibly could ask any player entering the NFL. And he's obviously older than your typical rookie, and is kind of playing with experience and confidence that you don't always see from first-year players. But that still could be all turned on its head, particularly in a road game in the wild card round of the playoffs. I look at kind of path as kind of the most important factor for them. If they can get the 6th seed and go to LA, that's a much softer matchup, for instance, than having to go to Philly in the 2-7. And so I think that's kind of the key here as far as how the rest of the playoff seeding shakes out. I don't know that I have a strong opinion on how it will land, but I think the 6th seed makes things more interesting to me for them than the 7th seed. Right now, I would say that I wouldn't make them more than a touchdown dog on the road to anyone in the NFC playoff mix. I think at worst case, you're probably talking about probably 6-ish point dogs against Philly based on the market we got a couple of weeks ago when it was in Washington. If you're up against a team that's off, if you win your 3-6 matchup, for instance, and then you go on the road to either Minnesota or Detroit, and those teams are coming off the bye, it's going to, I think, just be just inside of a touchdown in those spots. Maybe it'll be a touchdown. So you're going to need two pretty big wins to get yourself into the NFC title game. If you're the Commanders, and at 18-1, or really, I guess, 16-1 to win the NFC, I think realistically you're going to be better off rolling over money lines than you're going to be taking that number. Commanders are going to have to do it themselves. They're not going to be the beneficiaries of chaos happening elsewhere, I don't think. There's no surprise NFC championship game where it's the 6-seeded Commanders host the 7th-seeded Packers, I don't think, but maybe. So I think that kind of the path here has a relatively limited upside for them as far as taking a futures price. But people aren't going to really believe in these guys, I don't think, in their matchups because of the youth and inexperience of the quarterback. And so we may get some opportunities to bet them at some decent prices game by game. And if they can capture some of their upside, then maybe they are a fun, rambling team in a wide open NFC. But would you take any piece of that, or if you were a bookmaker, are you just excited to be writing Commanders futures tickets because they're probably going up in smoke?
Yeah, the thing is like, this is the type of team that I would love for there to be a price on, because I think Jay, of all the NFC quarterbacks in the playoffs and in the NFC in general, I think Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback, and I think he's better than all of these guys. I kind of don't think it's that close. I think he's materially better than Jalen Hurts, or the way that Stafford is played. He's better than Baker Mayfield. I'd take him over Jared Goff and Jordan Love. Ironically, Sam Darnold might be playing at the second highest level of anyone. I just don't see, like, statistically, think it just bears out that Jaden Daniels has been better. And just also, I think that is such a hidden value. Well, not hidden. It's such a value that in high leverage moments and in high leverage games, the fact that guys who can run can just ramp that up. Like Jaden Daniels in the second half against Atlanta, he won that game with his legs, just completely unstoppable. It's a version of how Mahomes in the playoffs just scrambles more, except Jaden Daniels is actually really fast and is one of the most dominant rushing players we've ever seen in the NFL. So I love this Commanders team. I love their upside. I love their scope to win any individual matchup. I just think they're better than the Rams and the Bucks. But the issue is that they're going to have to do it from a 6 seed. To your point, the fact that I think if they were the 7 seed, they would be kind of drawing dead if you had to go to Philadelphia in round 1 and have to roll that over into 2 other additional road games to make the Super Bowl. But the fact that it looks like they will get the 6 seed and they'll get to play likely the Rams, then I do think that is going to be very winnable. The issue is that, again, okay, so yeah, I like the Commanders. I think Jaden Daniels is awesome. What does that actually mean in terms of committing an action? If you're just rolling over the money lines, I just don't think there's much meat on the bone at these prices based on how the market treats this team. I think the Eagles, if that is a matchup at some point, I think the Eagles 5.5 points better than your average team on neutral, and the Commanders, I think, are 2 points better than your average team on neutral. So in the playoffs, they're going to be, I think they'd be 6-point dogs against the Eagles on the road. And then they'll be, ideally for them, Minnesota would get the 1 seed, and then they'd be 4-point dogs in Minnesota, that type of thing. So what do you think?
Disagree.
Minnesota's better than that?
No, I think ideally for them, Detroit's the 1 seed, and you are facing a limping defense in that 1-6 matchup.
I think Detroit probably still better than Minnesota. At least the market thinks that Detroit is slightly better than Minnesota. The fact that they're between 2.5 and 3-point favorites at home, but yeah, I mean, there's not that much difference between those two teams. It certainly feels like there's probably more variance for Detroit to completely melt in a playoff game because of how banged up the defense is and how much of an unknown that is, which is weird to say that Sam Darnold is less of a melt contender. I think Darnold's just been so good for so long that while it can happen, I kind of have more faith in his floor than Detroit's, which is, seems weird to say out loud, but it's kind of where my head is at. But yeah, I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone at these prices, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if they win a playoff game. A team that I would be a little surprised now, Drew, if they win a playoff game, particularly if they don't beat the Bengals to lock up the 5 seed, the Steelers, who now for a month have just kind of sucked. They just haven't been good. Their defense has been exposed as D-line merchants. Makes them sound that's a little too harsh because they do think they have the best defensive line in football, but the back end has been exposed and the corners are not particularly good. They've triggered the Chiefs offense into looking good and winning a not 1-score game. They got blown out at the end by the Ravens, though that game was close going into the 4th quarter. They got trucked by the Eagles, George Pickens wasn't part of that game, so that hurts. But overall, I think this team is just kind of looking like a very average team. And the fact that in a game that they need to win, they really want to be the 5 seed and play the Texans instead of being a 6 seed and having to go to Baltimore. The fact that they're 3-point dogs at home to Cincinnati does not bode particularly well for this team. So do you think there is any upside left in the Steelers, or is the die largely been cast?
I think the die has been cast. But your point is, I think, very, very well taken that the Steelers need to win this game this week and get the 5 seed. And that does open up at least some upside for them because a matchup against the Texans right now doesn't feel especially scary, even if you're a team with flaws. The kind of more in kind of interesting angle, I guess, for the Steelers is just, how low can the market get on them, right? They have a stink on them right now because of this 3-game stretch of losing. They've been high profile games, people who have gone against them in these week by week bettings are just flush right now, and they're kind of dominating the market pricing for the Steelers team. And so I think ultimately the interesting part is like, is there a buy low on them at some point, right? Like are they such a toxic asset that you're scooping some sort of value? And I think that's sort of the prism that I'm looking through. I can't even tell you how disappointing it was that we could basically see this car crash coming. And like, oh man, they're going to lose these next. They're going to lose the last 4 games. Like, how do you prey on that? How do you find some super high upside way to capitalize on what is likely just going to play out because of the way their schedule is sequenced? And yet, like, they still made the playoffs because no one else could put together wins to challenge them, and they had banked just enough to get this thing home, and even in the absence of extremely solid play from TJ Watt, he still looks likely to just win the DPOY. Like, I can't believe that there was such a clear and obvious, like, this is coming to an end. This is not a good team. And yet the only way you could capitalize on it was bet against them game by game. And, so I'm happy with the results the last 3 weeks betting against the Steelers, and that's fine. But I am a little disappointed that there wasn't like a 75-1 miss the playoffs that has a chance to get home this week, which would have been nice. But I will say that if they start getting priced like a team that's 2-3 points worse than an average on neutral, then I think that's your buy low spot, because as much as it seems like they should have been playing for something and want to be playing well this time of year, everyone does. It's still, these games haven't mattered a ton because they locked up a playoff spot in a loss several weeks ago. So if they get healthy and they get right, they might be a buy low against Houston, certainly in a 4-5. In a 3-6 against Baltimore, that's going to be the one where you really have to think very hard, because we just saw that market. It was not favorable for the Steelers. And if there are a couple of free points on top of that, it's going to take some serious thought to pass up on a spot of getting like 7.5 points on the road at Baltimore. And I think that's probably where that market would be if that's our 3-6.
Yeah, Baltimore 6.5 points better than your average team on neutral, and the Steelers at this point like 1.5, like 1, I guess, depending on player availability. And so yeah, I would think that line is 7 off the top of my head. I think that firstly, I don't think, well, we'll see. I would take the field over Watt at this point. I think that Garrett, who cares about the game between Cleveland and Miami, but Garrett getting 2 sacks in that game and now just being statistically better than Watt across the board, I do think hurts Watt a lot. And not so much that it's going to mean that Garrett wins Defensive Player of the Year, but I think that Garrett statistically now acts as something of a blocker against Watt to help Surtain. That would be my theory there, but we'll see how it plays out. I think it's very close between Watt and Surtain. I think Garrett is all the remaining equity in the market, like 8 to 10% of the market. I don't think he's going to win, but I think there are worlds where if he gets another couple of sacks against Baltimore in an island game on Saturday, that it might become undeniable statistically. But I think ultimately Surtain and Watt are pretty neck and neck. With the Steelers, look, if they are able to get the 5 seed, which, they're home to the Bengals, who are a very imperfect team. They're 3-point dogs there, but very viable they win that. If they face the Texans, that game is going to be close to a coin flip. And then if they win that and they go to Arrowhead, obviously they're going to be material dogs to the Chiefs, and everyone will pick the Chiefs, and the Chiefs will be like 6.5-point favorites or something in that game. But again, that's a winnable game. And so there are worlds where they can get to the AFC title game and then get absolutely trucked by Buffalo or Baltimore. That can happen. There is a pathway to that happening. I think in general, like now that we're, on the eve of the playoffs and looking at these prices to win conferences, the Steelers are 22-1 to win the AFC. Like the thing is that there's going to be a lot of content out there about like, I like this team as a long shot. I like the Chargers at 15-1 because Justin Herbert can beat anyone. Like now at this point, like it's purely about rolling over money lines. And I find year in and year out that there is just no value on long shots in the market. I don't want to make a blanket statement because, yeah, if there's an off price, like if the Chargers were 60-1 to win the AFC, it'd be a great bet. But for the most part, I've found year in, year out that the value tends to be that the favorites are not priced short enough. And every year, it seems like I'm just betting on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, or I was betting on the Eagles to win the NFC the year that they were the 1 seed and went 15-2 or 14-3, whatever they went. And I find that the market often is not short enough understanding that if you only need to win 2 games at home, if you're a 1 seed to make the Super Bowl, you generally got to be pretty short. And often that is not the case. So I didn't see any value in any of these long shots in the AFC because the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens are just 3 such trucks to get through for anyone. And none of these teams are particularly scary outside of those top 3.
Honestly, look at what the betting market is telling you about the enthusiasm to back those teams game by game these last few weeks.
Yeah,
like they've just been like, like going back to the because I forgot about this, the Saturday before Christmas, that Baltimore Pittsburgh game, like when limits up day of, there was just an avalanche of Baltimore money. Like it could nobody could get enough. Same day, same on Christmas against Texans, and what happened? Reward. Immediate confirmation of the smartest people in the room who believed that Baltimore was was these emerging giant. And I think your points are fair, and particularly when it comes to betting long shots in the NFL playoffs. But I do think that there is a chance for a little bit of imbalance this year, right? Like the NFC to me looks chaotic and wide open, and you could very well have a team like the Lions, who is, I mean, maybe at that point their defense is a hair healthier. Maybe Hutchinson is back if he's in the Super Bowl, whatever. But I know he's targeting that. But that could be a defense that is limping into a Super Bowl against an absolute juggernaut. And so I think there is certainly Super Bowl prices on. Realistically, pick your horse between Baltimore and Kansas City, in my opinion, and just take a Super Bowl price and then laugh when the NFC matchup is Baltimore at Washington. Baltimore is touchdown.
Yeah, I think I said Baltimore 6.5 points better than your average team on neutral. It's probably higher than that. They're probably more like 7.5 at this point with how the pass defense has been fixed. So I think Baltimore's the best team in the league. I don't think they're the most likely team to win the Super Bowl. I think that is the Chiefs pretty clearly because they have the 1 seed and they just have to play 1 less game. And then also, and the other huge part of that is that they're going to get to play in round 2 like the Texans or the Steelers or the Chargers. Meanwhile, Baltimore's going to have to play Buffalo in an absolute bloodbath. I just think that it is very lined up for the Chiefs. And also, I do think that the Chiefs, the past few weeks, they have I think they've gotten fixed on offense. The games against the Texans and the Steelers, I think they looked a lot better than these earlier games where they're just completely stuck in the mud. I don't think that they look as good as Buffalo or Baltimore, but I think they look good enough that the 1 seed and not having to play Buffalo or Baltimore in round 2 is enough to make them the clear favorite, or at least the most likely team to win the Super Bowl, even if, that's still a sub 25% chance to actually get it done. But yeah, I think the Chiefs
one key question. Is there any universe where Buffalo slips on a banana peel in wild card round? Significantly in favor of Baltimore, which is maybe the only thing that I would consider as far as the way it will shake out.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be stunning if the Bills lost to the Chargers, if Justin Herbert played out of his mind, and it's football, like you bad fumble luck, or Allen could have thrown 2 picks against the Jets with his crossbody throw into the end zone and then his arm getting hit. And in a game, if, those 2 picks fall and the Chargers catch them, then absolutely the Chargers could beat the Bills. The Chargers would have, I don't know, like a 30% chance to win that game or something in Buffalo. Yeah. So they'd be live there. So, yeah, I think that is more likely than – I find it more likely that can happen than – the Ravens losing to I think the Ravens just kind of have a higher floor game to get. I also think they're better than Buffalo, but we will see. And then, I hope as a football fan. Well, as someone who's on the Bills from preseason at 20-1 to win the Super Bowl, I hope Lamar Jackson goes down in round one of the playoffs. But if I didn't have that position as a football fan, I think you want to see Allen Lamar in round two. Certainly, that would be an epic game to kind of stack up against the Allen Mahomes clashes of years past. All right.
Well, I got one other key question for you. You worried at all if you are holding Kansas City equity and you see Burrow sneak in as the 7th seed?
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want to switch to Burrow. It's terrifying. Much rather see Russell Wilson or DJ Stroud. No, to be fair, I guess it doesn't really matter because I'd rather face Cincinnati than Buffalo. And if Cincinnati get in, it's the 7th.
Sure, that's a fair point.
Buffalo. So yeah, actually, I don't care. I actually want Joe Burrow in the playoffs. In general, he's terrifying, but the Bengals are a worse team than the Bills. So yeah, I'd like the Bengals to get in and take the Bills out, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Broncos will take care of Carson Wentz and company, and if they don't, then I think that whatever is left of the Dolphins probably gets over the line against the Jets. Certainly, if Tua is able to go.
I haven't figured out my handicap for that Chiefs-Broncos game yet. I guess got to figure out in what way Carson Wentz can cost you the most money and then bet on that. Diabolical.
I was reminded of Carson Wentz in his Week 18 exploits in 2021 when he lost as a 17-point favorite for the Colts against the Jags, as the Colts again replicated that performance against the Giants on Sunday. They've had two of the worst losses of the 21st century in the past 4 years. So congratulations to them. All right. The NFC's number 1 seed is on the line this Sunday night when the Vikings take on the Lions in Detroit. Coverage of the showdown wraps up the regular season at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Lions -3 right now at BetMGM, though plus 100 there. So, minus 2.75 and what will be an epic showdown. All right, another epic showdown. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, NBA MVP. They are the two favorites, tier 1 by themselves at MGM. SGA is plus 125, having shifted over the past couple of days into favoritism. Jokic is plus 130. Giannis is 5-1. Luka Doncic has exited the market, being out for a month, much to my chagrin. Jason Tatum is 11-1, and I don't think anyone else can realistically win the award. Wemby's 66-1. He won't be winning. Cat and Jalen Brunson are next up. I would be stunned. And it will, to put it more, kind of frame it in probabilities, I wouldn't back 100-1 that anyone outside of the top 4 wins MVP. And I'm not sure I would back 60-1 on Tatum to win MVP either. So do you think there is a bet to be made in the market?
I kind of want your opinion on betting Giannis at 5-1. If you kind of isolate what he's done the last month, it's pretty amazing. And if he carries that forward and gets a 2 seed, and maybe even, I don't know ultimately how likely it is that the Bucks are going to run down Cleveland. That seems to be a tough ask because they are 16-14, and Cleveland has already gotten to 27 wins on the season. So that's an 11-win gap that you're going to have to make up. So realistically, it's maybe more a question about what has to happen for Giannis to get the consideration, because right now to me it looks unlikely that Denver is going to come out of this malaise at any point in the season. They are playing Jokic at such an enormous demand right now that I don't think it's very likely that he gets to the end of the season and is still doing what we're seeing. And they haven't been banking wins. They're 7th right now in terms of standing, and sort of that middle class of teams is not going away. Phoenix is still fighting hard. The Kings are still, the Kings are capable of, I think, climbing back into the mix in some way. And I would expect that, as we get closer to the All-Star break, if Denver is sort of still in the middling of the standings in the Western Conference, then his case is going to be in deep trouble. So for me, at least, it's a matter of who deserves it. It's pretty obviously Jokic, but are there extenuating circumstances that are going to force the voters to find a second choice? I still think that SGA's candidacy is a little flimsy. I think Tatum's case is very weak. I wouldn't even really put him in the discussion. So for me, it's a question of, is there a way in for Giannis at this point, and is 5-1 a play? But do you have a different opinion?
I don't think Giannis. I think he can win. I think there are worlds where he can get there, but not. I didn't think remotely close to 5-1. Like the reality is the team is right now they're 16-14. They're a 6 seed. They're behind the Atlanta Hawks in the standings. They are 6 games behind Boston. They've lost the tiebreak there as well, if that is ever going to come into play, which I don't think it will. And just the idea that Giannis is going to be able to get, like, they're 5 games behind the Knicks, who I think are a lot better than them certainly as a regular season outfit, and I suspect they will be by the playoffs as well. So I just think that the issue with Giannis is, like, what is his superlative that would win in this race? Like, he's gonna get the scoring title. Like, that's not going to be enough to actually win MVP. His team record is just undoubtedly going to be worse than Shai's, and worse, like potentially 15 to 20 games worse than Shai. And then his advanced stats just don't stack up to Shai or Jokic. The Bucks on the season with Giannis on the court have a plus 1.4 net rating. They've been better with Giannis off the court. So it's like you're 16-14. Your team's better when you're off the court. Your advanced stats don't hold water against the big guy. Like Giannis is 6th in APM. He's 5th if you take out Luka. So yeah, I think he is the most likely guy to finish 3rd for MVP. But I think Shai, even if the counting stats are always going to be a little bit of an issue for him, because just the rebounds and assists aren't going to stack up to Jokic. He's probably not going to be as efficient. Like the box score stats just aren't as loud for Shai. But I mean, Shai's team is 26-5. They have a plus 12 point differential. They're a plus 17 net rating when he's on the court, and they're neutral when he's off. He's leading the league in EPM on the team that I think is most likely to finish with the best record in the game. And so, I think it's close on merit between him and Jokic, but I just think that we've seen so much of this with Allen and Lamar, and it's not quite the same because Shai isn't held in the same regard as Josh Allen. But I just find it difficult to believe that we get to the end of the season, the Nuggets are 15 games behind OKC in the standings, and the advanced stats are pretty close, and people are going to just vote for Jokic over Shai. So at this point, I think Shai, I would have him favorite over the field and have a minus in front of his number.
Okay, so I guess best player, best team is kind of his candidacy.
Also, best advanced stat. Like, he leads the league in EPM. His on-off is off the charts. He's super efficient. Chet going down gives him a bit more of a narrative as well. He finished 2nd last year. Like, I think he's just a very well-rounded candidate. And I get that. I just think there have been distractions early on. I think Jokic just going ballistic in the box score and with his on-off stuff. I think that was kind of a little bit of a not a red herring. So I still think Jokic is like 40% to win the award. But I think that Giannis and his NBA Cup exploits was a total distraction because it just kind of obscured the fact that, the team was 16-14 and they're better when he's off the court.
Yeah. He's digging out of an enormous hole that was the month of October and the early portion of November. But the thing is, if you carry forward what he's done since like Veterans Day, and the fact that he's getting a little bit of a break here in sort of the dog days, to me, at least, if he has a month of January into the All-Star break that is as good as what he had showed from mid-November through Christmas Eve, or when did he last play? It was the 20th. If he replicates that level for a month and a half, then that just becomes what people are talking about. And his kind of shifting the narrative to him just being the best player in the NBA, I think, is possible, or at least people say that. Maybe you say that out loud. And it's going to be largely because of his offensive contributions, and people may just assume he's still as good of a defensive player as he always was, even though that part of his game seems to have slipped a bit. I think that's why he's still your 3rd choice, and why of the prices becomes the most interesting, because we could get to an All-Star break where people are still like yeah, I guess Shai should be favored, I guess. But these guys who are second and third are better players. They're just not on as good a team, and I'm not sure how that ultimately would shake out. But the fact that I think the Milwaukee Bucks will surely get into the playoffs without incident, whereas the Nuggets might have to play their way in and really throw serious cold water on Jokic's getting votes at all, is kind of why I would lean in that direction, on top of the price being, 5-1 versus, plus 125 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis is averaging like 33, 12, and 6, which is ridiculous. He's hyper efficient. He's learned kind of how to shoot again, which he hadn't really been able to do for a couple of years. And he just looks more comfortable in the mid range, where, he's shooting 43% on long twos, 54% on the kind of 10 to 16 range. And he's taking 23% of his shots from those two areas on the floor. So look, yeah, Giannis is awesome, but I think that there are just too many things stacked against him. Like, the world where he would win would be if he keeps on putting up these stats, the advanced stats get a bit better, and if he drags the Bucks somehow from 16 and 14 to like 52 wins and a 4 seed, and Shai cools off a little bit and the Thunder end up at 59 wins, and it's kind of a cluster between the top 3 guys. But I just think you have to contort so many different ways to get to the world where Giannis actually wins, because I think ultimately, like, people really value advanced stats and on-off and the team record. And Giannis, I think, is going to end up deficient in all 3. So, yeah, I think he's certainly by far the third most likely player to win. I think that Jokic, if the Nuggets can right the ship a bit, and Murray has looked a little bit better of late, which helps. And Westbrook, surprisingly, has been like, Westbrook's become a punchline of sorts, but he's been fine for that team. And Christian Brown is having a really good year. Like, there are worlds where the Nuggets could absolutely right the ship and get to 50 wins, and they're 10 wins behind the Thunder instead of 15, and Jokic's stats are better and he just wins. But I think that Shai is going to end up the cleanest candidate when all is said and done. All right, okay. The holidays just got merrier with the Premier League festive fixtures on NBC USA and streaming on Peacock. Today through January 6th, we're bringing you the greatest gifts, magical moments, and holiday cheer. Don't miss a moment of the drama and excitement from the best players in the world.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days, in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's talk about Rookie of the Year in the NBA before we get out of here. Zach Edey has been the big mover in this market, going from 40-1 down to plus 125. Stephon Castle, who was the favorite after Jared McCain went down, he has drifted out to plus 375, coinciding with his benching. Yves Missi is 4-1, Jalen Wells 10-1, Alex Sarr 12-1. Then we have Knecht and Shai at 18-1 and 20-1. Do you think there is anyone who is value at price?
Man, I'm having trouble finding anyone who's valuable to be on the court out of this entire mix here. This is a real tough one. No one has emerged. We've seen the top of the board get shuffled just based on in small sample heaters. Edey's, his candidacy and his role with the Grizzlies seems the most stable, but it's also very uninspiring. Like his actual performance has been, has been fine, but he's okay defensively, and he is a big minus offensively for this team. So, I can see pretty obviously him slipping and somebody coming in and putting some serious pressure on him. Of the guys in the mix who have bigger prices, I like Yves Missi as far as a player goes, but the Pelicans, I have no idea what the future holds for that team. They've been such a massive disappointment this season, and I think they probably at some point just can maybe tack into a development of their younger players like Missi, so maybe he continues to be somewhat featured there. But presumably Dalton Knecht is going to get a little bit of more opportunity here for the Lakers now that they've moved on from the D'Angelo Russell experience, and he's an okay offensive player, massive minus defensively. So it's tough to see exactly how his role can sustain in LA, where at some point they may just ultimately have to reduce his role because he's such a liability on the court as far as playing defense goes. But there's really nobody else that is doing anything of note across the rookie class right now that I would point to. I guess I'm curious if you have any super duper long shot takes here, but surprisingly the highest rated, I don't even know if you would know this off the top of your head. Who do you think is the highest Darko rating of all the rookies right now?
I have no idea. It's not Edey?
Not Edey. Edey's number 2 at minus 0.8. The best rookie is another Memphis Grizzly named Yuki Kawamura. He is a minus 0.4, and that is because he is a positive contribution to the Grizzlies offensively and a small minus for them defensively. But I don't think he has a realistic case.
I would push back on the idea that Edey's not a good offensive player. Like, they have a 41% offensive rebound rate when he's on the court. He's a plus 1.4 offensive EPM guy in the 84th percentile. I think he's a pretty useful offensive player. They're 3 points better per 100 on offense when he's on the court. I just think that the thing is that I think he's the only good player of any of these guys. And I think the other thing too is that the big question with Edey was, particularly when he's coming back from the 12-game layoff, is like, what is his role going to be in the Memphis rotation, and how many minutes is he going to play? Because the way that Edey was going to go down is like, all right, well, what if they're going to start Brandon Clark over him and he's like, 18 minutes a game? Well, since he's come back, he's become the starter again. They're playing him in the mid-20s in minutes, and he's producing. And I get that it's not super inspiring in terms of a stat line, but I would say the median outcome for Edey is going to be that he averages 13 and 9. And it's going to be hyper efficient because it's around the rim, and he's 65% true shooting. He blocks shots. He's a presence defensively, and he gets to play with the starters on the Grizzlies. And it's just a sick lineup when they're actually healthy to run out. And I'm not sure how much longer Jalen Wells is going to start, but even if they're just running out Morant, Bane, Wells, and Jaren next to Edey. And so just the fact that he is like a starting positive player for a team that I think is going to be a top 3 seed, I think that, and he's efficient. And also, he is kind of, because of his size and just how unique a player he is also kind of a highlight reel with these dunks and blocks and the screens for Jar and all of that stuff, where I think in this field, I just think that he is in a tier by himself above all these guys. And particularly because the guy who I'm not sure if he's even second most likely to win, but Yves Missi, who has gotten some buzz, Edey's just better than him at everything. It's just such a clean head-to-head for Edey to win that, because he's going to average more points. He's going to be more efficient. His advanced numbers are going to be better. The Pelicans are 5 and 26 or whatever, while the Grizz are a truck when they're healthy. So I think that the guy, I think Edey, if he is healthy, which is the biggest question mark with him, And he's in concussion protocol at the moment with a nice big shiner on his eye. But I think he shouldn't miss too much time there. But if he stays healthy, like, I think that he sets a very high floor where the guys who can beat him are like super high variance guys. Like if Stephon Castle figures out how to play offense a bit more and becomes a starter again, or if Alex Sarr, who's been playing a bit better of late, if he kind of figures it out more and gets a lot of usage and puts up huge counting stats. But all these guys at Price, like, I don't find any of them inspiring. And I think that ultimately what is going to happen is that if Edey stays healthy, I just think he's fairly significantly likely to win the award.
Okay. I can't really dispute that or debate it, really. I mean, he's got the most he's got the most polished game, like, and expecting what you've seen to continue and having him land around 11 points and 8 rebounds. Yeah, that seems reasonable. I don't know. I'm not sure why my numbers are so hard on him, but there's a pretty big delta between his actual and his expected EPM for some reason, and the Darko numbers, particularly offensively, are not flattering for him for whatever reason.
Yeah. The thing is like, he's already missed 13 games and he's gigantic. And so there's more risk of injury. So if he does get hurt, then we're just in a chaos market. And it's like, is Yves Missi really going to win Rookie of the Year? Is that where it goes if Edey gets hurt? But I think that Edey's price currently is about fair. And the only reason I think it's fair is because of the health risk. But there is no minimum games requirement for Rookie of the Year, like there is not for Sixth Man of the Year either. And so he doesn't need to play 65 games. And in an award like Rookie of the Year, I think if he's in like the mid to high 50s and he's got clearly the best case, then I think that'll be enough for him to win. And then, yeah, there's not like Jalen Wells would be interesting if like everyone in the Grizz could just stay injured forever, but I just think he's going to have a worse case than Edey. And I think that when the team is healthy, he's going to be like 18 to 20 minutes per game and eventually gets – the Grizz have other guys coming back as well who are going to play on the wing. So I think that Wells will probably just fade away. He needs injuries. And then like Castle and Sarr need to just get better at basketball like now. Which is kind of a hard thing to ask them. And then Missi needs Edey to go down, and then he can be a default winner potentially. But yeah, none of these guys, like Shai gets decent usage, but he's kind of lost on this Hawks team. Knecht has been pushed to the back of the Lakers kind of rotation in a way. Perhaps he could emerge again if there's an injury, but I think everyone else requires injuries and Edey just requires health. So look, it's the worst race since Malcolm Brogdon won, but Malcolm Brogdon scored like 11 points per game and won the award. And I think that Edey will kind of be in a similar vein to like, it's not going to be super inspiring in the box score, but I do think he's a good player. He's contributing to a good team, and the numbers I think will be clean enough and he'll win if he stays healthy.
Okay.
All right. We are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.